Excellent.
Perfect.
Hello, everybody who's already joined. We're going to get started in about 4 minutes or so. We're just getting the YouTube stream up and running. Thanks for joining us. Get settled. We've got ourselves some water, and I've had a couple cookies. So you're welcome.
Anna, do you want to make me a host again? I don't think.
Absolutely, yes.
Just in case.
Thank you. There we go.
We see Perfect. You, Heather Laird.
Thanks for joining, Heather. Alrighty, there we go. Perfect. It's a lovely night. For those who are here early, I'm going to let you guys know, unfortunately, it's not a lovely night everywhere. In California, it is currently snowing. So we won't be able to show you the sky live, but we are going to show you a couple other things and give you some tips of how to observe, especially in a time when you can't do it with other people. Ryan, have you gotten out observing since we've been in self-isolation?
It's a challenge living in the city. I'd love to get I have an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope that I'd love to get out and use, but it's not great in the city. I have done a little bit of time-lapse photography because I happen to live, oh, of course, now my screen's cutting out. Of course, because I live on the lakeshore, so I actually have a really nice view of the city skyline. So it's really good to just get the camera out and go sit there and just let some time lapse run and take some star trails, that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, that's great. It's something anyway. It is hard to get out in the city.
Well, I'm jealous where you are. You've got much clearer skies than
I do. I am lucky. We have exactly one city that we can see from here, and it's only got about 800 people in it. So really it's more like a town. It's pretty great. Hi, Kareem.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us. Kareem is one of our excellent volunteers from Montreal. He runs some fantastic outreach out there.
Right on. Hi, Kareem. Nice to have you along.
Yeah, it is nice to, it's just not, even in the city though, it's nice to be able to look up and see Venus and a couple of the big stuff, big items up in the sky. Makes you feel at home.
I actually hope to do a lot more observing this year. My wife got me a great book on astrophotography covers the whole everything basic up to advanced stuff. And so I'm excited to go and buy the $400 worth of random equipment that I don't have and put it together and do some photography.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. It's so exciting to get new gear and be able to give it all a rundown.
Yeah. Or even somebody else's old gear and just get to play with it. Right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It makes it more affordable. We have a fantastic youth member actually who at the RISC who does astrophotography on a tight budget from London, Ontario, and he produces some really good photos.
It's amazing what you can do. We're one of the things the book was talking about was that we have this really amazing this technology, this breadth of technology that we have that lets us do so much more with so much less data, right? I mean, digital cameras is one thing, but having computers to edit it, we can do better photography than professional astronomers did 20 years ago with a DSLR and a 20-year-old telescope now.
Yeah, it's incredible the amount of stuff that we can do. I recently saw a post from somebody who had what looked like the raw photo, looked like just a gray field. And he produced a beautiful image of the Horsehead Nebula. And it's like, where did that come from?
It's all there. All the photons are in place.
For sure. Yeah. So it is now officially 10:30 p.m. So welcome everybody. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Jenna. I'm with the RISC. I'm the outreach coordinator. And we also have Ryan here tonight. Ryan is an astronomer, but he also runs a planetarium called Astronomy in Action. He's one of my favorite people to hang out with. And we are going to do a couple things tonight, one of which is go over what you would be able to see tonight if it's not cloudy where you are, and some beginner tips for how to do astronomy at home and on your own, even if you don't have any tools with you. We were going to give Peter Jedicke, if you do want to invite others, by all means, send out the link and invite anyone to join. You're more than welcome to have folks here. If anybody has any questions as we go, please send them to the Q&A and we'll go through them periodically. We're also going to do a big question and answer section at the end.
Hey, I got to give a shout out to Babak in chat. I remember you. It's nice to see you. I remember that. He says I got him his first view of Saturn at Courtright Center. I think Jenna was there too.
Maybe I might have been there too, yeah.
Jenna, you might have actually been there too.
Those nights are great, and those first
Nice to
memories of
have
Saturn.
familiar people here.
Oh, that's amazing. Hi, everybody. So first of all, I wanted to do a couple quick shout outs to some folks who have some resources available. So first off, Julie Bolduc Duval runs a fantastic program for anybody who's got kids. She's running programs every day at 2 p.m. And that is going to, those go over a lot of the sort of more academic stuff, but they talk about astronomy and how you can like measure the width of the, or the diameter of the Earth and how to do all this really cool stuff. So I'm going to send out in the chat right now a link to her YouTube channel where she posts those every day at 2 o'clock, every weekday. We are also at the RASC hosting some intro astronomy courses online starting on March 31st. So those I will grab the link for, and they're going to focus more on observing than they are on the math, and all of those sort of like the curriculum-based stuff. So we're going to host a couple of those. They're going to go over some of the programs that we're using tonight, which will be great. And then we're going to go into, later on in the courses, we're going to go into introductory astrophotography and introductory Photoshop. So if you're looking to make pretty pictures, feel free to join those afterwards. Everything is free. Everyone's welcome to join. Ryan, you're also doing some cool stuff, right?
Yeah, I've actually, I'm going to start doing Facebook Live. I've got a few episodes in the works, just general astronomy, Q&A, ask an astronomer, and kind of see what's up in the sky, learn about the planets. Just going to be kind of off the cuff, something to keep me occupied, because currently I'm a planetarium operator without the ability to use a planetarium. So that's okay. I just get to do cool things like this with you and talk to people about space. So I'm really excited to be here because of that.
That's awesome. So we'll include, for those of you who are joining on YouTube or watching this later, we'll include the links to everything that we just mentioned in the description. And we'll do that again also once this video is finished.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So let's get on to the stuff. Let's talk about what we're going to see tonight. So as I mentioned, for those who have joined since I mentioned this, we unfortunately won't get a view of the actual sky tonight because it is cloudy in California. And I'll show you how we know that. I've got a link to our telescope in California that shows you what it looks like. This is our view right now. You'll notice that it is snow. So unfortunately, it is a pretty messy night out there in California. So we're going to just stick to taking a look at Stellarium and seeing what will be up there if there weren't clouds in the way.
We can, like we said, we can pretend that snow is the moon and take a look at a very, very old, fuzzy view of the moon. But no, that's...
Yeah, it's one of those photos from like early 1800s. It's all good. Yeah. That's what people...
Although I have to say, I've seen some of the images that you've captured with that camera. That remote setup is beautiful, like really fantastic stuff.
There's some really cool pictures out there. And we actually, for those of you who are interested, we do have data available if you want to try processing your own photos. If you're at a stage in your astronomy career where you'd like to try something like that. It's pretty complicated, but we have data available, and I'll post that link in the description of the video as well. It's pretty cool.
There are some great tutorials out there too. It's it does have a bit of a steep learning curve, but if you have something like Photoshop, or even you can find free software like GIMP to go out and just play with it a little bit. If you ever want to get into it, you can do a lot of fun things.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna share with you guys. Let's see what we've got right now from where I am. I'm on Manitoulin Island in Ontario. Ryan is in Toronto. I know we've got people from all over the country here. This is what we're seeing right now in our sky. I'm going to take away the lines for now, just so we get to see the bare bones picture of what's up there. The first thing that you may notice, oh, it's starting to set. I'm actually going to take us back in time a little bit because it's nice to see one of the brightest objects in our night sky, and that's Venus. So we've got Venus up in the west right now, and it is, if you ever hear it referred to as the morning star or the evening star, you only ever see it in the morning and the evening just because of the way the orbit of Venus works. Since it's closer to the sun than we are, it never goes all the way across the sky. It always stays closer to the sun. I can actually show you the orbit. Let's see.
Oh, that's fun. Well, you're getting that ready, Jenna. I want to ask everybody, do we know how to identify a planet in the sky? It's a little bit different than just looking at a star, right? Like but Venus being a planet, it's bright, that's one way to tell, but it looks kind of like a star. So how do we tell? How do I look up in the sky without the big letters that are up in the sky and say, hey, that's Venus? How do we know that?
Anybody got that in the chat? Let's see.
Oh yeah, already. Yeah, I've got to give credit to our first one, Phil Groff. Stars twinkle. Basically it. Stars twinkle and planets don't, or at least they twinkle less. Right? Twinkling happens because the air in our atmosphere is moving around. Right? And that bends light in different ways. And because a star is basically a point source, really, really far away, it's bouncing all over the place thanks to the atmosphere. But planets, they have size, they have dimension, as somebody, Eloy, pointed out in the chat. They have dimension. They're a round object in the sky if you zoom in with a telescope. And so they ripple, but they don't twinkle. So it's a little bit easier to tell if you're looking for a planet and you're saying, oh, that one's twinkling. Okay, that one's a star.
My favorite analogy for this is if you're imagining the sky as like a picture that you've taken, stars would be 1 pixel and planets would be like 2 or 3. And so if the atmosphere moves 1 pixel, then it looks like the star is moving and it's twinkling. But that wouldn't be the case with planets because it's 2 or 3 pixels.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's a neat one, eh? What program are you using? We're using Stellarium. It's free and it's open source and it runs on every single platform. So if you wanted to give it a try, you're more than welcome to. We're actually hosting an event on Tuesday, March 31st, where we're going to go over how to download it and use it. So I've brought up the orbit of Venus in the sky. So I'm actually going to set this again back in time so you can see a little bit more of it. Since it's closer to the sun than we are, it only comes up and then it goes back down again. There's some cool stuff that we can see with Venus later. For now, what you may be wondering is where's the moon? And the moon's not quite up tonight. The moon is actually at 1 day old, I think. It was new moon yesterday.
It's a newborn, yeah.
It's a newborn. So if we take away the ground here, you can see it's really, really close to the sun. So if you look at the moon, it's going to be really, really hard to see it. You only get to see a tiny, tiny, tiny sliver. So we can't see the moon tonight, but as we go forward in the next couple of days, we will start to be able to see it. It's going to get bigger and bigger. And then in 2 weeks, it'll be full. We'll see it nice and bright.
Perfect.
Does anybody recognize any constellations that we have up there? Shout them out if you do.
I do, but I don't want to take it away from our chat. I want to get some good answers.
I figured you would, Ryan. Let's see.
There we go.
Orion, yes, everybody's favorite constellation. I am a big fan of Orion. It's a nice, easy one to find. Ooh, get out of here. There we go. So there's Orion right there. It's got the star names popping up. I'm going to give it its typical drawing. There it is. These lines don't appear in the sky, but probably the most easy to identify part of it. I know, it's wild, right? Oh.
If you, get the app on your phone, you put it right in front, and there they are, lines on the sky, right?
That's true. You can use apps to bring the lines up. Otherwise, you have to use your imagination, which is what humans have done for years on this stuff, which is why we have constellations such as, oh, my favorite one. Anybody know what this constellation is here? Use your imagination. Anybody? Yeah, it's a puppy. Anybody see that? Not me. There's the drawing of it. Theoretically, that's what you're supposed to see.
That'll help a little bit.
Yeah.
My favorite constellation, Jenna, is Triangulum. Yes. The triangle.
Oh, I love it.
Because when people are like, oh, let's fill the sky with all these different constellations, they're like, oh, there's a little bit of space left. What's up there? Oh, look, a triangle. Yeah. It's like the laziest constellation ever. So
it's so lazy. Yeah, at least with Canis Minor, they had at least a sense to kind of come up with some nice story to go with it, right?
Yeah.
And Orion actually has a pretty cool story to go with it too. Orion is just about to set now, so you'll see it's getting over into the western sky. The story behind Orion, it actually has to do with Scorpius, and so if anybody knows where Scorpius is the summertime constellation, and the story goes that Orion and Scorpius got in this big battle. Orion used to be a little bit of a braggart. He used to claim that he could take on any animal that was in the animal kingdom. He was the ultimate hunter, and Zeus was not super keen on this attitude, and so he sent Scorpius after him, and they both fought valiantly, but to the point where unfortunately both of them died after the fight. And so to commemorate their spirit and their fight and their souls, Zeus put them up in the sky, but he didn't want them to keep heading, so he on one side of the sky and Scorpius on the other side of the sky. So Orion and Scorpius are never up at the same time. When Orion sets, Scorpius rises. There's actually another neat one. Sagittarius has his bow and arrow trained on Scorpius just to make sure that Scorpius stays in line too.
That's good. Have you ever talked about the one with the Pleiades? And Taurus the bull is protecting the Pleiades from Orion. The 7 princesses, right? Running from Orion the hunter.
So for those of you who don't know the Pleiades, I actually don't know that story. Do you know it well enough to tell it?
Yeah, I usually tell it to little kids, so I'll give you the little kid version. Is that basically the 7 princesses, the 7 sisters were 7 princesses, of course, living in a castle, and would swim in the river alongside the castle. And Orion the hunter heard the commotion that they were making, and peeked out from behind a tree, and there were the 7 princesses, very beautiful. And so he started chasing after them, telling him that he was in love with them. And he chased them for 4 years through spring and summer and autumn and winter, until finally they got so tired of running, they pleaded with Zeus. They said, please save us from Orion. We're so tired of running. And so Zeus said, okay. And he picked them up and placed them in the sky. But Orion was friends with Zeus's wife, Hera, who was able to place him up in the sky so he could continue chasing the princesses. And so Zeus decided to turn himself into the bull Taurus and place himself between the hunter and the 7 princesses to protect them.
Amazing. That's a good way to remember where all the stars are in the sky, actually.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it. It's a little bit adapted, right? If you're going to tell it to little kids, I have to tell everybody most mythology stories are a little bit violent and somewhat adulterous. So it's nice to kind of simplify them a little bit for kids.
Yeah, that's the way storytelling always goes.
I did see somebody asking, sorry, I just wanted to interrupt. I did see a question in the chat about Betelgeuse. There's been a lot of talk lately, a lot of excitement around it because it has been brightening and dimming lately. And so, the idea is that Betelgeuse is a supergiant star that's nearing the end of its life, and it's going to explode as a supernova. So the excitement is that, well, if a star is rapidly dimming, as Betelgeuse did a couple of months back, then that might be it starting to collapse to prepare to go supernova, which is an exciting idea. But Betelgeuse, when we're dealing with astronomical timescales, it could be any time in the next 1 million to 10 million years that Betelgeuse actually explodes. So it would be incredibly lucky if that happened. But still kind of exciting to talk about. And of course, I'm a fan of any news that gets people talking about space, talking about astronomy. So unfortunately, it's not likely that Betelgeuse is going to go supernova anytime soon, but it would be, if it did, it would be pretty amazing to see, because it would be bright enough to see in the daytime for about 2.5 weeks. And so not only would we have the sun, we would also have the bright star Betelgeuse in our daytime sky. So I do have to tell you, Betelgeuse has since brightened up quite a bit and is kind of going through its pulsations. It is, because it's such a big star, it's constantly pulsating. It's getting bigger and smaller, roiling and boiling like boiling water. So it changes its brightness quite a bit. So it's not entirely unexpected. So thanks for that question. I know that's a popular one, so I'm glad we could get a chance to talk about that.
Yeah, Betelgeuse is really cool. Do you know the origin of the name for it?
Oh, yeah, I tell this one all the time. It's the armpit of the hero, right?
Yeah, it's the armpit of the great one. Yeah.
Oh man, kids love that one, because I'm like, you look at stars, it's like, oh, it's the knee of the hero, or the dog star, or this or this. And it's like, oh yeah, that's the armpit star, that one right there.
I don't know why just kids love it, because I think it's great too.
Yeah, me too. It's like my favorite thing to tell.
Yeah. So someone just mentioned the Orion Nebula, and this is a really cool thing I did want to know. You can see it now until Orion sets, and it's really, really bright for a nebula. It's very cool. So what you're looking for when you're going to find it is, if you find Orion's belt first, which is like one of the most identifiable things in our sky, which is fantastic, and just look for the sword that hangs down from Orion's belt. If you want, it may be a scabbard. The middle object is Orion's Nebula. So it's actually not a star, just a single star there. It's a big cloud of stars. And if I recall correctly, that is a star forming region, right, Ryan?
It is actually. The Orion Nebula and some of the other nebulas in the constellation of Orion are all part of one giant molecular cloud complex. And so there are actually different regions within that cloud that are forming brand new stars. So these new stars form, they're bright, they're hot, young, bright stars, and they're shining, they're breaking apart hydrogen atoms in the cloud. And when those hydrogen atoms recombine, they glow. And so that's basically what we see especially in infrared. But the glowing nebula is actually beautiful. Orion Nebula is one of the brightest in the sky because it's so close to us. It looks pretty great in binoculars or small telescopes, but if you have a larger telescope, it's actually, your telescope's too big, too good at magnifying the sky, and so you'll actually won't be able to see the entire nebula in the sky.
Yeah, it's a pretty exciting object, and you can, I don't know if Ryan believes me on this, but if you go to the right place in Toronto, you can see it. If you go down to a park that's a little bit more isolated and doesn't have as many lights, you can see it even from the city, just barely, but it's there. And it's definitely worth training some binoculars on it.
If you have good eyes too, right? It usually helps if you have really good vision, but luckily, we have really great technology for glasses and for LASIK and all that stuff that can give you vision that's good enough to see anything in the sky.
That's the dream. I'm going to talk about some other new stars. So talking about Betelgeuse, Betelgeuse is a red star, and there are all sorts of different colors of stars. Because it's red, that sort of indicates that it's towards the end of its lifespan. And the younger stars tend to be blue, they tend to be hotter. So a lot of the stars that would be coming from the Orion Nebula, for example, will be shining blue. And another group of nice blue stars are the ones that we talked about briefly in our storytelling, which is Pleiades. To find the Pleiades, we actually have a neat tool. I'll get Ryan to show this. It's using your hands, but essentially what you want to do is look for, you can make an arrow using Orion's two shoulders and his belt if you want to, and that'll point to the brightest star in Taurus, the Eye of Taurus, Aldebaran or Aldebaran, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And then just keep on going about the same distance. So about the same distance from his shoulder to Taurus or to Aldebaran, and then on to the Pleiades. And the Pleiades also visible from the sea, and they're all blue. They're only about 150, 200 million years old. So they're quite young in the grand scheme of stars, and they do appear quite blue, especially if you look through binoculars. They are quite blue. Ryan, are you able to bring up the hands?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Did you want to take a closer zoom on the Pleiades? We'll just take
Sure.
one more.
Look at that. Oh, there's a cool thing happening with the Pleiades. Sorry, I forgot to mention this. And we can zoom ahead and I'll show you this. It's really exciting. It's happening on April 3rd. And every, I think, 8 years
I know what you're talking about.
Cool. This happens. It's very exciting. So the Pleiades already are this big cluster of a whole bunch of stars. But every year, every 8 years, Venus goes right through the Pleiades, Venus being the planet. And I can scoot us ahead in time to that so that you can see what that would look like. It's going to be, it's going to be on, let's see, on April 3rd. I'm going to bring up the time window.
Pretty cool.
Go ahead.
For those who are interested, the Pleiades is what we call an open star cluster, which means a loose collection of stars that were all born together out of the same birth cloud. So eventually the Orion Nebula will become a big star cluster in the same way, because it'll keep forming stars, and those stars will eventually blow away all the leftover gas and dust that you can see kind of hanging around just a little bit in the Pleiades.
Yeah, and that's, the Pleiades are starting to drift apart too. They're in open clusters, all starting to move apart from each other. So check this out. It is now, I have it set so that it's April 1st, not playing any tricks. If you go ahead a couple days, you'll see it getting really close. But on April 3rd, it's going to be right inside the Pleiades. So there's Venus, and there's the rest of the Pleiades. It's definitely worth a shot.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it's going to be right there. So it's worth, if you have clear skies on the evening, this is set to 9:30 p.m. on the evening of April 3rd. Go take a look to the west. It's going to be great.
Now, one thing to note is that in this view, Venus looks a lot dimmer than some of the stars in the Pleiades. Remember, Venus is much brighter than any of the stars in the Pleiades. It'll actually be difficult to see some of the other stars. You'll just be able to see Venus because it's so bright.
And I'll jump in here quickly because there's a setting in Stellarium where you can do something called dynamic eye adaptation, which is what you would see if you were looking at the sky. And if you do that, then you end up seeing what it would actually look like.
Well, yeah, there you go, right?
Mhm. It's an interesting one to see. Now, let's see. Do you guys want to? Do you want to see another object or two in the sky? Ryan, do you have any favorites this time of year?
Oh my gosh, so many. I really like the Rosette Nebula.
Oh, sweet.
Uh, you know where that is, right?
I do. That's only because I recognize it. There it is.
Yeah, yeah. That's another one that's part of the Orion Cloud Complex. It's actually about as big as the Orion Nebula, which I think is about a quarter of a degree across. I don't know if you can see it on your screen there, Jenna. If you have a measurement of the width of the
I
viewing.
can never remember. So our field of view is about 2.5 degrees right now. So this would make it,
Okay.
yeah, about.
Oh, so it is over a degree. Okay.
Yeah. It's hard to get it in a telescope, one telescope
Yeah,
field of view. I can tell you that.
you estimate it, yeah, but it's a lot dimmer than the Orion Nebula, so but you can see it. Nebulas typically look a little bit greenish to our eyes when we see them in a telescope because our eyes pick up green light better than any other color of light. And so even the Orion Nebula will look a little bit greenish in the sky in a real telescope or binoculars. Whereas here we're looking at images that people have captured. And if you capture an image of a nebula, you can bring out those other colors. Typically they look a little bit more reddish in invisible light.
Mm-hmm. That's to do with a lot of what nebulas are made of, because usually nebulas have a lot of hydrogen and usually sometimes sulfur, and those two emit basically only red light. So it ends up being, a lot of nebulas end up being quite red. If you ever see those really beautiful pictures, those multicolor rainbow pictures, those are often a lot of the times false colors. So they're essentially made by afterwards, after taking the photo, they're made to be quite colorful. There was one question earlier up, which was, why would the stars within the Pleiades fly apart when gravity should be bringing them together? And I have like a vague answer for that. Ryan, you might have a little bit better, but it's sort of like, it's not a big enough group of stars to keep itself all together. So there are clusters out there called globular clusters where there are enough stars that it all kind of globs together and keeps everything close by. But if a lot of the times, for example, things pass by us, but they don't get caught in our orbit because it's just not strong enough. Did you say that about accurate, Ryan?
Yeah, you're on the right track. A lot of it has to do, it's the total gravity in the cloud for one. Another thing is angular momentum. When you have a cloud of material that collapses into a bunch of different stars, the angular momentum is causing them to start spinning a little bit faster, and that gravitational the total angular momentum of the cloud is constantly changing and shifting, and that can actually send stars flying right out of the cloud. But it's mostly the total gravity of the cloud that just can't hold it together. And that's why our sun was actually part of a cluster as well, right? It was born with, I think, 5 of the 7 stars in the Big Dipper are theorized to be part of the initial cluster that our sun started in. And so 4.5 billion years later, they've all drifted apart, and now we don't look like we're part of a cluster at all, but they all started out born together.
That's very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually leads us nicely to, let's take a look at the Big Dipper, shall we?
Oh yeah, I think this is my screen share, right?
Yeah, let's talk about measuring space with your hands.
Yeah, that one's fun. I think I'll bring up that image first.
Yeah. I can stop sharing if you want to share the image.
Yeah, stop sharing. I'm going to do it I think we'll go on the screen first. So the great thing is all you need is your hands to do a little bit of measurement and observing in the night sky. Basically, you're going to stretch your arm out. I always like to tell people to start by giving me a thumbs up. And so you stretch your arm all the way out, which I can't really do here without blocking out the camera and messing up everybody's view and everything. But the first thing you're going to do is just put up your pinky finger. That's going to be 1 degree in the sky. 1 degree in the sky at arm's length. So you have to hold your arm straight. And that's about twice the width of the full moon in the sky, right? The full moon's about 0.5 degree. So our first one is just the pinky finger. The next one is 3 fingers, right? 3 fingers. If anybody has done scouts or guides, that's the pledge. And that is 5 degrees on the sky, again, with your arm stretched all the way out. The next one is a fist, knuckle to knuckle. Well, knuckle to knuckle is 10 degrees on the sky, right? If we're going to a rock concert, we're doing this one. Pinky, index finger to pinky is 15 degrees. And my favorite, the last one, the most important one for what we're going to talk about next is 25 degrees, and that's from your thumb to your pinky. Okay, so I'm going to bring up a nice image of all that stuff so we can actually take a look at it. There it is. So that's basically, can you see that, Jenna? Hello, did I lose it? Oh, you got it. Okay, cool. I think we might have actually lost Jenna, which was potentially going to happen. She's been having some internet troubles where she is because she's very far away from the city and city internet. So, so I'm glad. Thank you for confirming that in the chat that you can all see that. So, oh yeah, I'm happy to host this on my own. You know, I like Jenna because we can talk to each other and it's a lot of fun. But the reason I wanted to show you that was that we're actually going to bring you over to Stellarium. This is on my machine, so you can probably see the screen right now. We're going to zoom in a little bit, and you can actually see the dippers. Now, this is just a little, it's showing asterisms. The constellations themselves, of course, are much larger. You can see the Big Dipper here is part of what we call Ursa Major, the Great Bear. You can say it doesn't look too much like a bear, but of course we can bring it up. There you go. There's the Big Bear. But we're just going to talk about the Big Dipper because you can actually use that measurement. So the measurement that we did, the last one from your thumb to your pinky, that 25 degrees, if you find the Big Dipper and you follow along all the way along here to the last two stars in the Big Dipper, you can actually measure along that line all the way to the North Star, Polaris, which is right here. And that's way too much information about Polaris, but we're seeing it anyway. So you can use that, again, with your arm stretched out from your thumb to your pinky. You can actually measure the 25, it's slightly more than 25, it's about 28 degrees from this last star on the end of the Big Dipper, which is Dubhe, yeah, Dubhe, all the way down to Polaris. And once you find Polaris, the North Star, it always does, in fact, point north. So it's a great way to get navigation in the night sky. So you can navigate just using your hand, using that little trick. And so if your cell phone ever decides to explode for whatever reason, when you're outside in the forest and you're lost, find the Big Dipper. You can see it every night of the year as long as it's clear. And you can use that little hand trick to find the North Star and figure out which direction you're traveling. So, and I'm actually going to show you why this kind of works too, is if we center on Polaris, I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. So if we go forward in time, because the Earth turns, you can actually see the movement. This is the moving Earth, right? Stars move, but we're seeing the Earth turn right now. So you can see that as the Earth turns, the North Star is directly above the North Pole. So everything else looks like it's going around the North Star. And that's why this guy always points due north.
Okay. Sorry, I disappeared there for a second.
Welcome back. No, it's okay. I was very stressed out for a second, Jen. I had to run the whole show on my own here without.
It's terrifying.
You know?
I know that's way too much pressure on you.
So I started going on tangents and had my own kind of fun, and now you're back. And
I assume you referenced aliens at some point, didn't you?
Probably,
yeah. Yeah. I got my tinfoil hatchet. I did want to mention something about the Big Dipper because there's something cool that's happening that Ryan and I were just looking at. It should be brightening up in May. There's a comet that's coming along through past our Earth very, very soon. It's going to be brightening up in hopefully May, June times. Comets are really neat. Ryan, can you tell us about comets before I tell us about this particular comet?
Yeah, comets are unpredictable. And Jen, I know you've got a good anecdote about that. That we were talking that you're excited to tell, but comets are basically big dirty snowballs. The way I love to talk about them is that if you were to go outside, you know, when the last time it snowed here in March, let's not talk about that, right? But if you go outside and get that snow that's been hanging around for months and months and months after winter, and it's got sand and slush and all kind of gross stuff in it, and you took that stuff and you made it into a snowball, that's what a comet would be. It's basically a giant dirty snowball, except most comets are 4 to 10 kilometers across, so a lot bigger. And so as they tend to be really far away in the solar system. They have really what's called eccentric orbits, which means they start out really, really far away and they come in really close, right up to the sun, closer than Mercury, and go all the way back out, sometimes over tens of thousands of years. And so when a comet is way, way far away from the sun, of course, it's cold. It's not really doing anything. It's just a big snowball. It's dirty in space. It's hard to see. But as it gets closer and closer to the sun warms it up. The energy of the sun blasts off some of that dust and gas and causes it to start melting and spitting out stuff and sputtering. And that's what gives comets these beautiful tails. The problem is that it's really unpredictable. We don't know what a specific comet is made of. Does it have more ice? Does it have more dust? Is it going to be brighter? And so when it gets closer to the sun, that's when it can get really exciting. And this comet that has just started to make headlines, C2019, what'd you say, Y4 Atlas?
Y4 Atlas, what a catchy name.
Right? Yeah. So it's gotten brighter faster. And I'm actually, I'm going to show the brightness graph of it. Because this is a really exciting. Oh, do I have it?
While you bring that up, I'm gonna say my favorite quote, which is by David Levy. And his quote was regarding comets. Comets are like cats; they have tails and they do precisely what they want to. And that's exactly it. Where we don't really know what's going to happen. We have an idea of probably what's going to happen, but what if something changes? And what if it's reveals a pocket of gas that shoots it off in a different direction? Right? Hard to know.
There you go. You see that, okay, Jenna?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yes, this is a brightness curve. Basically, the curve or the lines here are showing how a comet typically brightens from maximum to minimum, average kind of in between, and when it reaches its peak and when it goes back down. Well, these points here are measured brightnesses. And so at this point, it was kind of on the low end. You can see in January, February, and then we get to March, and now we're getting the brightness, and it's actually brightening much quicker than we're expecting it to. And so when it reaches its peak around, looks like May to June, we're going to see it get a lot brighter, hopefully. Of course, we still don't know.
We still don't know. Some sources say that it may get as bright as magnitude 4, which is pretty bright. That's not quite as bright as Saturn, but it's pretty bright. And I'll show you guys, there's actually a recent, I'm going to share now. There's a recent video posted on Reddit of someone who took images of Comet C29Y4 Atlas, which just rolls off the tongue. And this was a time lapse over an hour, so you can see the movement of the comet over that hour. And it's also neat. It appears quite green.
Can you full screen it, Jenna, on your?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I have a hover zoom thing. There we go.
That's
there you go. See it moving.
That's also how we discover objects that are farther away from our sun, right? One of the ways we discover comets, distant dwarf planets. That's kind of how Pluto was discovered as well, is that you take a picture of somewhere in the sky and you come back a few days later or even a day later and take the same picture of the same part of the sky. And if you compare them, you'll see one dot that's moved a little bit. If it's moved, it's within our own solar system. And so you know that that's a potentially new object. So that's how Pluto was discovered back in 1930. And that's still how we find comets, new comets today, and new dwarf planets for that matter.
And then we do another similar thing with supernovae happening oftentimes outside of our galaxy, which is we just look at pictures of other galaxies and wait for new bright spots to appear. And then when new bright spots appear, it's a possible explosion of a star. I know it's more complicated than that, Heather. I get it. Yeah, it's close enough. So I'm going to quickly, one of the things I wanted to mention was using binoculars to observe the sky. So a lot of the stuff that we've talked about so far is stuff that you can do on your own, even if you don't have binoculars, but a lot of people have binoculars lying around the house. These are my dad's. I'm covering up the label that says that. I've stolen them for now. Binoculars are a fantastic tool for checking stuff out. Things look amazing through them, and a lot of people are used to using them. It's like having 2 telescopes for your eyes. You look amazing, Ryan. So I definitely, a couple tips. I recommend, first of all, trying them out in the daytime. If you have, especially if you're not used to them, you can give them a focus in the daytime. Usually one eye focuses first, and then you focus I think you focus the on top first, right? And then you focus the second
typically, because the top lever focuses both eyes, whereas the side focuses just one eye individually.
So then it gets it to exactly what you want that works for your eyes. And then take a look for the first object that you do at night. I recommend the moon. The moon is beautiful through binoculars, and especially nice on days when it's not full. So on a day that you can see an edge, look along that edge with binoculars, and you'll be able to see these really long shadows. It's like sunset on the moon at that one point where it goes from nighttime to daytime, so from light to dark. And you'll see these big long shadows. You'll see lots of craters and all sorts of cool stuff. So definitely try shooting or taking a look at the moon. And once you got that down, I definitely recommend the Pleiades. They're really cool through binoculars.
So that line between day and night, we call it the Terminator. What a great name, right?
Terminator.
Yeah. So I'm just going to give the obligatory, please don't look at the sun with binoculars, a telescope, or any other device that magnifies things. You will go blind, as Galileo did 420 years ago.
Did he really?
Yeah, he came up with he was the first to point a telescope up to the sky, and he wanted to take a look at the sun. I mean, I would too, but not a good idea. We know better now. Please don't.
We don't even look at the sun with our regular eyes, unprotected eyes, like unaided eyes. Right? It still hurts. Yeah.
Yeah. So don't do that. But Never. It doesn't matter how large or how small the binoculars are. You can still see things. It's, I feel like everybody's got a pair just lying around in their house, or I think the first pair that I ever used was like just this pair that my grandparents had sitting around in their house. And it was like, oh, can I use those? Or like, oh, we didn't know we had binoculars. I'm like, well, okay.
Seems to be all
you take them and you go out and you try them out and they still work great. So
yeah, it's definitely worth a shot, especially at a time like this where you may not have, especially like if you're just starting the hobby, it's a really nice balanced investment. If you're gonna buy a new pair, they cost like, you can buy a cheap pair. You can buy ones that are only like, $50. You can get up to, pretty good ones up to like $2. I guess the job done.
Yeah, totally. And you can look at the city from the water. I live on the waterfront, so I'm like, oh, look at the city. It looks really nice. So you can use them in the daytime too. There's people who like to bird watch.
I was just about to say, I love looking at birds. Yeah.
There you go.
That's why we have these here, is originally for bird watching.
Nice.
Yeah. So give that a try. You can do that isolated. You can do that in a park. You can do that without meeting people. You can do it 2 meters from people. If you want to do it, I've occasionally done this in the park near my house, where I'll just shout at strangers about what I think is cool, which is maybe not advised, but it occasionally works.
And one last point about binoculars is they get pretty crazy. I've seen binoculars with apertures bigger than telescopes. And because they're so, like, imagine binoculars that are 2 feet long and like huge apertures on them. And you need to put them on a stable mount because they're so heavy, they're like hard to lift. So it's not, you can get up to that point, but they do cost several $1,000s. So if you want to make the investment to have a really nice view of things, power to you.
It's also that balance of like, do you think you're going to use it? Because like I would only use something that I can hold on to. And I'm not going to, like, especially if you're holding them up to your face, if they're too heavy, you're going to start to shake and it's going to be hard to see stuff. So it's all about what fits you personally.
Setup time's a big thing too. I have a lot of people who say to me, oh, should I just buy the biggest telescope I can? And I say, well, no, because it's going to take you 2 hours to set it up and you're going to hate yourself at the end of it the first time. So, you got to learn it and get used to it. So it's nice to have a small scope sometimes, or a pair of binoculars that you can just pull out, set up in 10 minutes, and then you're off to the races, right?
I recommend that especially for people who are like, my 12-year-old is really excited about space and I want to buy him a telescope, or I want to buy her a telescope. And it's like, yeah, but like consider binoculars first, because if they don't use binoculars, then they may not use a telescope. Binoculars are easy and telescopes are much harder they have a much steeper learning curve.
Totally. I want to talk about the ISS because we have had a couple questions, a couple points. People have pointed out that the International Space Station can be seen. And so we're talking about things that you can see even from a city. If you're doing some observing, if you're new to it, the International Space Station is a great thing to look at in the sky. Of course, you only get to see it for a couple of minutes, right? That's kind of the hard part about it. But you can go, and NASA has a really great website called Spot the Station. So it's spotthestation.nasa.gov. And you can go in there, put in your location. So I throw in Toronto, and it spits out a bunch of dates and times the direction, all that information about where you can see the space station up in the sky. And it looks really cool. It's brighter than everything except the sun and the moon. Like, it's brighter than the planet Venus. And something really amazing happens too, is because it's 400 kilometers above us, it's much closer than everything else in the sky. And so as it heads over through the sky, it passes into the shadow of the Earth and just disappears. And so you're seeing this super bright object passing through the sky, and then all of a sudden, bam, it's gone. Well, it's still there, but it's in the shadow.
You can't see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very cool. And it is a really nice beginner target because, again, you don't need anything to observe it. You can just go and look. And it's also cool because it happens in such a short window that you feel very satisfied if you actually see it.
I think I'm actually going to try and bring it up in Stellarium, Jenna. So
yeah, let's do it.
If I look like I'm concentrating for a minute, that's why.
That's why.
Yeah.
While you're doing that, I'm going to answer a couple of the questions that came into the Q&A because we have not been looking too closely at the Q&A. We've been mostly looking at the chat when we really should be looking at the Q&A too. So apologies to those of you who asked the questions in the right spot. Ha. So the first question is, Venus is still up here in BC. I heard that it has phases like the moon. Is that the case? And if so, what will we see now if we could? So I'm going to answer that live. It does have phases, as actually, technically speaking, the Earth has phases. Everything has phases. It just depends on where you are looking at it. And so what I think right now we'd see it more than half full. We'd see it sort of like about not quite all the way around, but like a chunk taken out of it. There's a couple photos.
You can see it on Stellarium if you
zoom.
Oh
yeah. I can get that. I can get that ready if you're busy getting other things ready. Let me.
I'm just about there. I'm just trying to get the ISS.
Okay. Let me share Stellarium. We'll go look at Venus. Where'd you go, Venus? So it does have phases in short, but you need a really powerful telescope to see them, and it ends up looking a little bit blurry because Venus also has. There we go. Venus also has an atmosphere as well. So there's the phase. It's pretty much half full now, which makes sense because if it's at its furthest point from the sun for us, from our perspective. And so it would be about half full at this point.
Yeah, there you go. Looks good. Yeah. And it's Venus is typically really bright because it's got what we call a high albedo. Albedo is the reflectivity of a body in space. Stars, we don't talk about that because stars give off their own light. But planets, moons, asteroids, comets, all that stuff has albedo. And typically things that are icy give off a little bit more light, right? But Venus isn't icy at all. It's quite hot, but it's got these thick clouds that reflect light really, really well. And so that's why it often looks really, really bright in the sky, even though it's only a crescent, or in this case, half full. So I'm going to bring up the ISS, okay?
Okay. Can I say one last fun fact about Venus? Because it's my favorite fact about Venus, which is that it's the hottest planet in our whole solar system, which is interesting because Mercury is in fact closer to the sun. But Venus has that atmosphere, and it's that runaway greenhouse effect where it's just keep trapping all this heat inside. And so every time that we try to send anything to it, it lasts like 2 minutes and then it melts, which is, good effort. We tried.
Okay. Acid doesn't help either, right?
Acid doesn't help. It's all bad on Venus, really.
Okay, so we're going to Stellarium on my screen, so you can see right now. This is tomorrow night at 9:05 here in Toronto. So it'll be a little bit different for our friends across the country. But you're gonna see the ISS pop up kind of over here. There it is.
Oh, cool.
Do you see that? ISS Zarya. That's the name of the module, the Russian module. And this is, we sped time up a little bit, like real time, you kind of see it like this. And so you can see it is actually brighter than the planet Venus right there. Right now, as it kind of goes through its orbit every hour and a half, the view that we're seeing here isn't going to last too long. This is tomorrow night from here in Toronto. It's only going to last for about 3 minutes. And you'll notice that it's really low to the horizon. So if you are in the city, you have to be able to see the northwestern and northern horizon in order to see it go over. There are different times of year, depending on where it is when it's in its orbit, where it will go higher up over your head, but we're going to watch it go down range, and you'll see that it actually does disappear not too long from now. But you can see as it goes down range, it's actually moving further away from us, and we are going to see it disappear. There it goes. Right, just blinks away. So it's a really fun object to take a look at, and there's a lot of great amateur astrophotographers who have tracked it and captured images of it from the ground, where you can actually see the solar panels and the modules, and it's pretty amazing. So somebody was just asking the time. This was at 9:07 p.m. tomorrow night.
In Toronto, though.
From Toronto, yeah. So if you go, I'm going to type the website, the spot, the station, in the chat, and you can all sit here and watch me type.
I'm going to go back to the questions, because now that I've mentioned that there's a Q&A, more people have asked questions in the Q&A. Ryan, you may want to just send that out to everybody. Right now, it's just going to the panelists, so you want to send it to all the attendees as well.
Oh, see here, the whole time.
Oh no, you've been sending stuff out?
The whole time I've been like typing stuff and like answering questions and doing
Have you really? Oh no.
Literally, apparently just been.
No. Sometimes you answer. Maybe not though. I'm sorry, Ryan.
Literally just been chatting to Jenna the whole time.
I really appreciated they were good answers.
I can count on one hand the number of messages I've sent. So there you go.
Okay. I feel better.
Okay, now I just want to confirm that everybody can see that.
Can everybody see that? Can everybody respond and see it? Yes.
We got one. Yes, all the yeses. Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay, and I also I'm going to post Stellarium, because I did that before and nobody saw it. I was like, oh, nobody's responding to this message that I posted. There's
good idea. I'm gonna bring up a question that I may need your help to answer, Ryan, which is, through an 8-inch telescope, what should Comet Atlas look like in a light polluted sky? So this brings in a whole bunch of factors, including how light polluted is the sky, and at what point are we talking about Comet Atlas? Right now it's at magnitude 14 or something like that.
Yeah, 14. That's
so that's like the magnitude of Pluto, which is like not much. And so you won't be able to see it in a light polluted sky. But if it does get up to magnitude 8, you might be able to see it in a telescope in a light polluted sky, I would say. Depends on the city.
Yeah, basically in clear skies, our eyes can see maybe at magnitude 8, 9, maybe 10. It's as it brightens, it will get easier, but light pollution basically extends all of that and makes it even worse for our eyes. Even from clear skies with an 8-inch telescope, at magnitude 14, you're not going to see a thing. But when it gets up to magnitude 8, it'll actually look really beautiful in that 8-inch telescope. So hold on to that and make sure you can set it up quickly, so that if you do get clear skies like a month from now, it'll look a lot nicer.
While we're here, I'm going to send a link to all the information about this comet for the folks who are interested. It has all the things like the location and the expected brightness and the current brightness, and all that stuff is in there. Alrighty. Let's see what other questions we have. So can you please, this is someone who's already done research. That's nice. So we don't have to do this. Can you please mention that for those on Vancouver Island and lower BC mainland, ISS will be rising in the west at 8:19 Pacific time and passing very close to Venus. Is that tonight? David, if you can answer in the chat, that'd be great. If not, fingers crossed that's this evening. So that'd be pretty cool.
Oh, I'm just checking the date. That might be tonight.
That might be tonight in Vancouver?
Yeah, well, tonight in Toronto, well, no, it would be earlier anyway, so.
Oh, Chris Gaynor says that it is about to come up in Victoria. So for those of you who are currently here, feel free to bail. Quickly run outside and take a look.
Yeah. Okay, so you wanted to do more questions, Jenna?
Yeah, there's another question coming up. I don't know if you have, I don't know if I have an answer to this. I kind of do. Is there a software that we can look at stars from outside of Earth, for example, to want to see which stars are closest to the sun, or how M13 is located with regards to the sun in the whole Milky Way?
Yes, I'm trying to remember it. Is
it NASA's Eyes? Because I feel like NASA's Eyes has some good stuff like that.
Yeah, it does. NASA's Eyes has some great stuff.
I'll grab the link.
I'm just trying to look up the thing that I think there's a great app, and oh, okay.
Oh, Starry Night, some people say.
Starry Night can do that.
Yeah.
It is one of the things that can do that. There's a really good one, and I can't remember the name of it to save my life right now. But if I find it, I'll bring it up. There's tons of great software that shows all that stuff. And part of the reason is that we have a good understanding of the distances to the local universe, to things that are close to us. We have a good idea of how close the closest stars are, because we can measure how they're moving, and in relation to other objects in the sky, other stars, we can see what they're made of. Um, and so because we have a good idea of what our local stellar neighborhood looks like, we can build these 3D models and kind of place things in it. And a lot of, especially as a planetarium guy, a lot of planetarium software is able to do that, no problem. But there are some good apps that can do that. There's a really fun one that I use sometimes, called Universe Sandbox. And so that's, yeah, I think it's like $15 or $20. But it lets you, not only does it let you putter around in the solar system, in the local universe, all that kind of stuff, you can actually do fun stuff like crash stars together. You can see galaxies colliding. You can do all kinds of fun things. Thank you for posting the link to that. So
No worries.
I've been a fan of that program for at least a decade now, and they just keep adding newer and better content. So it's a really fun little thing to play with if you like that kind of thing. And you can see some real stuff and where some real locations are, but you can also do some goofy stuff too. So yeah.
Very cool. Okay, I think that's a good amount of answers. There's a neat question that just came up, and I like this because I have a really hard time with the magnitude system, or I did when I got started in astronomy. How does the magnitude system work in terms of what you can see? There's a really good, I'll see if I can find the resource online quickly, Ryan, if you want to explain it a little bit.
Sure. The essential idea with the magnitude system is that it just gives us a relative kind of scale for how bright things are in the sky, to our eyes. There are two types of magnitudes. There's apparent magnitude, what we see on any given night, which does depend on the conditions in the sky. And then there's absolute magnitude, which is based on the physical brightness of the object that you're looking at, typically a star. The essential idea is that if magnitude is a logarithmic scale. So if I have a star that's magnitude 1 and I have a star that's magnitude 2, the difference in brightness is a factor of 10. Okay, so the magnitude 2 star is 10 times dimmer than the magnitude 1 star. Okay, and so that you might think that that makes a big difference, but it doesn't really. When we're looking in the sky, there's not a huge difference between a magnitude 2 and a magnitude 1, but you would be able to tell which one was brighter. When it was first conceived, the magnitude system, they actually wanted to start at 0. So they thought, oh, 0 should be the brightest objects in the sky. And I think they picked Vega for that.
Ooh.
As a magnitude 0 star. And then I don't know why they picked Vega, but I mean, it's clear that there's Sirius in the sky, which is magnitude, I think, minus 2, minus 3. Somebody will have to correct me.
I don't know if it's quite numbers. -2. Yeah.
But so we ended up having negative magnitudes as well for things that are even brighter, right? So, but essentially, as you go further and further, you get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. And so if you look at something like, a magnitude 1 star compared to a magnitude 3, the magnitude 3 is 100 times dimmer than the magnitude 1, right? It's a factor of 10 and another factor of 10. So it keeps going like that. So something that's like, magnitude 1 compared to magnitude 9 is 10 to the power of 8 times difference in brightness.
Wow. Yeah. And it's so cool that we can see such a wide range of that, just without any assistance. And I do want to throw out quickly, this isn't just the Wikipedia page, but it is useful. There's something called the Bortle scale, which tells you how light polluted your skies are. And it goes through basically sort of, it's pretty subjective in terms of like, you should be able to see this magnitude star and this magnitude star, or this, these many stars in the Big Dipper are visible, but it gives you an idea of how light polluted your city is. And it also gives you an idea if you look up at the sky and you say can only see 1 or 2 stars in the Little Dipper, then you know how much light pollution there is, and therefore what you're kind of working with in terms of targets.
Bortle is also really great for astrophotography, because if the sky is darker, you need less imaging time to get the same picture, basically.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Cool, good to know. And it is also, I was going to mention too, if you're in a city and you're looking for targets, because I know there was a question that came up that was, what are some cool objects that are visible in a light polluted sky? If you go on Stellarium, if you know what level of the Bortle scale you're at and what magnitude you can see, you can go on Stellarium and look at objects that are that bright. So Orion Nebula is kind of cool if you have binoculars, depending on how light polluted it is. Pleiades are really cool. In some areas, you can even see the Andromeda Galaxy, but you kind of have to not be in downtown Toronto for that. What are your favorite light polluted objects? Oh, sorry. I asked you that and then I remember telling you.
Don't let me stop you.
It's not a nebula or a galaxy or anything, but a couple people mentioned the double star that is in the Big Dipper, Mizar and Alcor, which is the second star in the Big Dipper's handle, is actually 2 stars. It's a binary system. And so you can see that in a light polluted city. You can see those 2 stars if you have really good eyes, but it's worth taking a look at through binoculars.
Yeah, that's a really nice one. There's actually, it's a triple star system as well. There's, I think Alcor is the smaller one. I don't know. Anyway, one of them's Alcor and one of them's Mizar, and there's actually a 3rd star that orbits one of the 2. I think it orbits Alcor.
That's very cool. Can you see that?
You need a telescope to see it.
Thank you for answering the question that I couldn't spit out.
It's all good. What other things in the sky right now to take a look at? I mean, Andromeda Galaxy is setting a little bit. It's going to set soon, I think. I got to take a look.
It is. It's not great right now.
Oh yeah, it's low. It's more in the autumn. It's kind of right up. So we're also starting to get toward the summer sky, right? So we're going to start to see a lot of other summertime objects that are going to pop up a little bit more. Constellation-wise, I love looking at Leo the Lion. It's basically a big backwards question mark up in the sky. You can usually find pretty easily. In the city, I would mention the Milky Way, but it's tough to see the Milky Way in the city, so probably not the best thing to look at.
If you want to find, there's a trick to finding. You can star hop to Leo if you want to find Leo, using the Big Dipper, and I can't remember how. Oh, I'm gonna share my screen if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So if you do want to find Leo, Leo is a really nice constellation, and it is that. There he is. The little backwards question mark. Big Dipper. If you go to the Big Dipper and there's the 2 point stars to get to the North Star. If you look at the opposite 2 stars on the pot, they point down towards, I believe, is it Regulus? Yeah, Regulus, which is the brightest star in Leo, and you should be able to find the backwards question mark from there. So that's a good one to take a look for in the summertime. Oh, and the Summer Triangle. The Summer Triangle is a nice one.
Oh yeah.
The Summer Triangle, I'll bring it up by scooting ahead in time. The Summer Triangle is an asterism, so it's a really bright group of stars. What do I want to open? A nice bright group of stars that's really easy to find. And the thing that I kind of like about it is that you can find it when you wander outside at night, even if you're in the city, and it kind of feels like it feels like you know what you're doing when you look up at the sky. It's really easy to find. It's this big triangle here. 3 really, really, really bright stars. The Milky Way goes directly through the middle of it. It's much bigger in real life than it looks like on the screen. But when summer comes around, definitely go take a look. And then every time that you're out and looking at the stars, you should be able to find it.
Jenna, while you have your screen shared, what we haven't talked about is the morning planets.
Oh, the morning planets. Yeah, that's exciting. Good point. I'm going to go back to right now. No, there we go. And I'm going to scoot ahead to tomorrow morning. No, not that far. Where are we? There we go. Okay, check this out. Tomorrow morning, there's been a really nice grouping of planets. Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter are all super close together. And you can actually, over the past couple of days, you can see that Mars has been moving a little bit closer to Saturn, and it'll get closer and closer over the coming days. So that's going to be really cool on March 31st. They're going to be so close. This is about 1 degree here. So that's that width of your pinky. And so if you have a telescope, those will be in the same field of view, which is very cool.
Wow.
There you go.
Of course, you have to get up early.
Yep, that's 5:30 in the morning.
It's much easier to stay up late than it is to get up early. So.
Well, see, every time I speak to my parents about this, who are not, astronomers, I'm not a functional insomniac. I'm not good at staying up late. I find this so hard to go and look at the stars. So that's why I like observing in the winter, because it's dark pretty early. I don't have to stay up until super, super late to be able to see stuff. It's a little chilly, but A little bit
Looks like we
easier.
got a few people who saw the ISS today, so that's exciting.
Yay! Sweet. Was it worth? I
Lily in the
assume it was worth
chat,
leaving the
and
live
Cam
stream
in the
party to go
chat.
see. That's
That's great.
awesome. Congratulations, guys. That's great.
Well, welcome back. Thanks for coming back, actually.
And welcome back. Yeah.
Not just being like, oh, I'm just going to go look now. It's, hey, if it's a nice clear skies where you are, take advantage of it, right? We're getting into the seasons where us Canadians can shake off the ice and actually get outside for long periods of time without freezing to death. So it's quite nice. It's starting to get into the observing season for Canadians here. Of course, there's the hardcore of us who will always be out in the winter. And kudos to you. I find myself among that group sometimes, but not as often as I'd like to. So yeah, enjoy the next few months, because it's going to get warmer and be nicer, and we're going to see some of the summer constellations come up. Lots of neat objects to look at, lots of fun things.
Mm-hmm. I think since it's 11:30, I think it's about time we start wrapping up. So if anybody has any last minute questions, throw them out there. I'm going to respond quickly to Andrew Bennett, who said, given all the cool tech available, do people still use planispheres much? Planispheres are those little like star wheels where you can move them around and see what's going to be up in the sky at any time. I personally really like them, just because you can take them with you and they don't shine light into your eyes. So they're, are you going to bring up a picture of one, Ryan, by any chance?
Sorry, I was answering other questions.
That's okay. I'm going to bring up a picture of one so that folks who don't know what they are can see. So it's something like, let me share.
I'm going to do my best to answer as many questions as I can in the chats and everything.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. I'll keep answering questions in the Q&A. So these planispheres are essentially wheel. You can watch the sort of movement of the sky. Uh-oh, my internet stopped.
Oh, I think we might have lost Jenna again. Oh no. Well, that's okay. Well, we're doing Q&A now, so you can feel free to ask some questions in Zoom if you want to. Yeah, we're going to do our best to finish all the questions that we've got, and I'm trying to type through some of them now. That said, if you ask one and we finish the stream, we'll still try and answer some. Hopefully the answer will get posted once we answer it. But yeah, so please keep sending them. If they're in the chat, it's a little bit tougher because as more people type things, the questions can kind of disappear a little bit. But I'm going to use this. Oh, there you go. We lost Jenna officially now. I'm going to use this time just to give a quick plug to my own stuff, because I'm going to start doing some webinars on Facebook Live on my page, Astronomy in Action. So I'm just going to share it with you for. Oh, my Twitter is @AstroInAction. @AstroInAction. I confess I don't tweet very much, but here's my. There you can see my Facebook page there. So facebook.com/astroinaction. I'm going to do a couple of Facebook Lives over the next week. I think our first one's going to be Friday evening. But so I'll post something about that. And it's going to be a lot like this. I'm just going to talk about what's going on, what's up in the sky, and answer questions, because that's kind of fun. If someone doesn't have a Facebook account, I think you can still watch a Facebook Live. You can still see the page just by joining. So if you go to facebook.com/astroinaction, and I'll post links to all that probably on my Twitter as well, @astroinaction. And I also have an Instagram @astroinaction, although I'm not up on the social media game as much as some people are, but I do post some things. And when I'm doing the live stuff, I'll be sure to post where everything is so that everybody can join in. Because like I said, I'm a planetarium guy without a planetarium right now. So I just love talking to all of you lovely people about space, and I'm really grateful for the chance to do this. So kudos to Jenna for putting it on, and for the RASC for supporting all this. So I'm really excited about it. Jenna, I see your face, but are you back officially? I'm gonna take that as a no. Okay. She's her image is back, but I think she's having some connection troubles. So yeah, so there we're back to me again. So I'll wrap us up. I'll keep talking, keep answering questions as long as I can, at least until Jenna gets back and calls it officially. But I'll take this chance to just say thanks to everybody for coming out. Thanks a lot for the great questions. Thanks for participating. And I can see us totally doing this again. It was so much fun for me, and I know Jenna has a good time doing it too. So thanks for joining. Go and clear skies to all of you. Go out and have fun and enjoy it. So like I said, I'm going to answer some of the questions in the chat. I'll try to read out some of them as we go through them as well. Let's see. One person, do you have any pictures you can show us taken by the remote telescope? I think Jenna might have some archived images. Will there be more star parties? I hope so. We want to keep doing it. A couple of people saying, please keep doing this. When's the next session?
Sorry to keep cutting in and out.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just, doing my thing.
I appreciate you taking over.
I basically, Jenna, just took over and spent all my time talking about how great I am and how everybody should just, I'm just doing shameless plugs left, right, and center. So
honestly, I would do the same. You're pretty fantastic.
It was fun. Yeah, I was just saying I'm gonna run my first Facebook Live probably Friday night. I'm aiming for 7 p.m. So I am gonna post that on my pages. So anybody's welcome to join. I'm hoping to do them at least once a week, maybe twice. But Jenna, we're getting a lot of comments about people who want to see us do this again. So I would totally be up to do this again and again and again and again. As long as we keep having lovely people come out and listen to us, we have reasons to keep talking.
For sure. And I'm next time we're going to keep trying on the telescope. So we're going to keep trying for clear nights in California. We'll keep running star parties. I'll get a better internet connection so that I don't keep abandoning you. And we can bring some other folks in to have some nice chats about stuff too. Also, if you guys want to try for some intro stuff, we are running, the RASC is running introductory sessions at 3:30 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, starting March 31st. So we're going to have some introductory courses there. Yes, Eastern time. Thank you, Heather. And that's going to be live streamed on our YouTube channel. And you can also join the webinars if you have questions that you want to ask live as well. All of that information will be in the YouTube description as well for those of you who are joining. And I sent it early on in the chat. I'll send it again now. There we go. Thank you guys so much for joining. This has been a blast. It's so nice to be social and hang out in a time when it's really hard to be social and hang out. So we're really glad that you could all join us and that, you wanted to spend your Wednesday night into the wee hours of the morning. Yes, it is, Ryan. Science sure is universal. Oh, it's awesome.
I had to plug my shirt. Here you go.
It's a good shirt. Thanks, everybody. It was really great to spend time with you and have yourselves a wonderful night. Ryan, thank you so much for your time as well.
Always a pleasure. Take care, everybody. Thanks.
Bye, guys.